Dr. Paul W. McDaniel was a different kind of war hero. He was instrumental in helping the Allied forces win World War II, but his efforts were not military or strategic. The gift that he employed to ensure that the forces of freedom would be victorious were his intellect and his research. A 1936 graduate of Western, Dr. McDaniel was a member of the first senior ROTC class at Western. Afterward, he was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Army Chemical Warfare Service. Dr. McDaniel later took an emergency leave of absence from his position as a faculty member at Auburn University in 1942 to join uranium research with Dr. Arthur Compton at the University of Chicago. That groundbreaking work would become known in history as the Manhattan Project. The work led to the development of the atomic and hydrogen bombs and the peaceful uses of atomic energy. When the United States Congress created the Atomic Energy Commission, Dr. McDaniel joined the Division of Research and rose to the position of Director of Research. He supervised the atomic energy research programs at the national laboratories at Oak Ridge, Brookhaven, Argonne, Los Alamos, Berkeley, and Livermore. Dr. McDaniel's important work brought him much acclaim and many awards, including the U.S. Civil Service's Arthur F. Fleming Award for Outstanding Service. This year's final recipient, Dr. Paul McDaniel.
His expertise, knowledge, and work ethic put him at the forefront of some of the most critical research and development of our time. Dr. Paul McDaniel gave a lifetime of service to the United States through his work on atomic energy. With less than $1 in his pocket, sheer determination, and the support of university personnel, McDaniel left his Robards, Kentucky home, headed for the Hill. His love of chemistry made quick work of his education, and in 1936 he received his bachelor's degree in chemistry from Western. From there it was on to Indiana University, where he received a master's degree in physics and a doctorate in nuclear physics. It wasn't long before the federal government came calling, taking McDaniel to the University of Chicago to work on the government's project for the development of the atomic bomb.
And he obviously had the education at a very critical time in our nation's history in the development of the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. And he got called on, and he was willing to serve at that. And he jumped right in. He moved to Australia for a period of time on chemical warfare. We think this is an issue just today, but obviously it was going on then. He served 4 years in World War II. He was one of 3 graduates, the first graduates in the ROTC program at Western, and he got commissioned as second lieutenant. So, yeah, he was ready to take advantage of all the opportunities that came to him, but he had to be a special person to not only be competent in the science, but then to be able to deal with personalities and people.
As part of the U.S. Army Chemical Warfare Service, McDaniel served 4 years of active duty in Australia and the Southwest Pacific as the commanding officer of the Theater Chemical Lab. Upon his return stateside, McDaniel served as senior scientist in the research division of the Manhattan Engineering District at Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Well, the Manhattan Project was where the United States, as far as I understand, pulled together the top scientists in the country to try to put together this theoretical concept that they had in creating a bomb using atomic energy and uranium. And nobody had done it. I know the Germans were probably working on it, but we won the race on that, and that was critical to putting an end to the war.
The year was 1947. A tenuous time in our nation's history, and Paul McDaniel was in the thick of things. As chief of the research division of the newly created Atomic Energy Commission, the group charged with carrying out the congressional mandate for a federal role in atomic energy development. In spite of the magnitude and delicate nature of his work, Paul McDaniel worked tirelessly to promote the peaceful uses of atomic energy.
What I'm probably proudest of about him is in his work with atomic energy. He was ahead of a coalition that had to do with peaceful uses of atomic energy, and he attended conferences all over the world. I remember seeing pictures of him in Russia and India and talking about peaceful uses for atomic energy.
He was so completely in tune with what he was doing and what he loved to do. And he wanted so desperately to make people aware that nuclear energy was not just about bombs and the destruction that it can wreak on places, but that there were, like Wallace said, peaceful means of using atomic energy, and that's what he just felt strongly about, that we not give up on trying to find all those uses that it could be. He had contact with many very big people, very important people, and yet never forgot his roots in Kentucky.
Paul McDaniel will be remembered for his role in initiating research in controlled thermonuclear reactions and for advancing the high-energy physics programs of the nation. 2004 Hall of Distinguished Alumni honoree, Dr. Paul McDaniel.
Dr. McDaniel passed away on May 31 of this year. Accepting on his uncle's behalf is his nephew, Wally McDaniel.
I feel a little out of my element down here. We're from Minnesota in the deep north, and we're down here in the deep south. I haven't been attacked yet, so. I'm very pleased to be here today representing Dr. Paul W. McDaniel. My Uncle Paul was born here in Kentucky 88 years ago. His roots in Henderson County at Robarts and here in Bowling Green, where he first attended college, were always extremely important to him. Kentucky always held a certain charm for Paul McDaniel. He was especially honored and proud to be named a Kentucky Colonel. He has shared with us often the beginnings of his quest for knowledge. He didn't come from a family with money, was always dedicated to his dreams of his continuing in education. In his autobiography, he writes, "All my efforts trying to find a college where I could study science were in vain, however, because I simply did not have the money to handle college costs. I had almost given up the idea of college by the first week of September 1932. Then Virgil D. King, my science teacher from high school, came to my house that week with good news. He told me that he had arranged for me a position as assistant to the dietitian in the college dining room and a place to stay in the boarding house where he had room when he attended Western Kentucky Teachers College. Although I knew I did not want to be a teacher of young children, I immediately told Virgil that I would go to Western. I was probably the first student to attend Western for 5 years who did not take any education courses. I hurriedly got ready for my chance, persuaded my father to take over my chinchilla rabbit business, and borrowed $5 from Mr. Emery Cottingham, the only person in Robarts that I felt they could call on for money. On the way to the station to take the train to Bowling Green, my father, with tears in his eyes, handed me 75 cents, all the money he had, and wished me good luck. I then had about $80 and a round-trip ticket to Bowling Green in my pocket. In the following years, Paul worked several interesting jobs, stoking coal furnaces, cleaning pots and pans, and even as an office helper to the assistant of the president of Western Kentucky State College, Dr. H.H. Cherry. Uncle Paul always firmly believed and wanted young people to know that your position in life or the amount of money you had couldn't hold you back if you wanted it badly enough. Paul used to tell us about meeting all the presidents of the United States, from Franklin Delano Roosevelt to Jimmy Carter, but he still stays true to his roots. An interesting letter of introduction was written by the president of West Kentucky, Mr. Kelly Thompson, to the Honorable William H. Natcher, who was a Kentucky congressman. Uncle Paul had just been named Director of Research of the Atomic Energy Commission in 1960. Mr. Thompson wrote, "His loyalty to Western is inspiring to us, and the high position that he occupies as a director is one that brings inspiration to not only our faculty, but to our students, whose insights are now being set upon the future. He, in my opinion, is truly one of the outstanding young men in America. His responsibilities are indescribable, and no one can appreciate better than you. Along with it all, however, he is still a fine, unassuming, grateful, Henderson boy, giving constant and further testimony to the need that all Kentucky boys and girls be given an opportunity for an education. I thank those of you at Western Kentucky University for this honor bestowed on Paul McDaniel. I know that nothing would have made him happier than being able to be here himself to accept this award. He was a man who worked tirelessly at raising the support level for basic science in one of the best possible physics establishments in this country when the limitations of existing political pressures. He truly was an outstanding man. Thank you.